Well, there's a variety of changes that have taken place since 2003. First of all, the stigma of HIV/AIDS is being erased. In 2003, people who had the HIV virus was viewed as unclean and unworthy. Today, people realize now it's a treatable disease. Secondly, there's more hopefulness on the continent of Africa than there was in 2003. Antiretroviral drugs, which are now being widely distributed, have saved so many lives that people now have got hope. In 2003, there was a lot of people doubted whether or not antiretrovirals could be distributed throughout the countries on the continent of Africa. Well, PEPFAR, the AIDS initiative, proved that given the right strategy and the right tactics and working in partnership with local governments, that a distribution network could be established. And what's changed is the cost of antiretrovirals has dropped dramatically, so that we can treat more people in a more cost-effective way. What's changed is there's orphanages now for the little boys and girls who lost their mom and dads due to AIDS. The Pink Ribbon, Red Ribbon campaign is an add-on to the AIDS campaign that began in 2003. Across Africa, there are now AIDS clinics as a result of the generosity of the American people. What we've done is we put a strategy in place that uses existing AIDS clinics and adds a new dimension to those AIDS clinics, which is the testing and treatment of cervical cancer, a killer disease on the continent of Africa. I knew there was a need prior to going to the continent of Africa, but when you meet people firsthand who have got cervical cancer, it makes that need come even more vivid and more real. We were very well received. And I think the reason why is because many people in the continent of Africa appreciate the generosity of the American people. People across the continent know that because America was so generous from 2003 till today, many people now live. I remember holding a little child who is HIV-free and realizing this child has got such great hope, and also understanding that 10 years prior to that, the child would likely have had the HIV virus in her system. I remember seeing a woman testify about the power of faith to sustain her and give her hope in the midst of a terrible situation for her. She had lost her husband to AIDS, she had AIDS, her child had AIDS, she was a beggar, and yet she found hope in this clinic that Laura and I visited. Not only hope in the form of antiretrovirals, but found hope in the form of love. I want to thank Secretary Clinton for helping us on the Pink Ribbon, Red Ribbon campaign, because one of the reasons it's going to be successful is that the State Department has joined with the Bush Center, as well as the Susan G. Komen Foundation and others, to implement a program that will save lives from cervical cancer. President Obama has committed his administration to continued funding of the AIDS initiative on the continent of Africa, and that's very important. It's important for the American people to understand that through their generosity, millions of people now live. But it's also important for the American people to understand that if that generosity does not continue, and the antiretroviral drug are not given to people who have got the virus, then that pandemic that we've arrested could conceivably start back up, and that would be a human tragedy. Well, the son-in-law behaved very well, and Laura and I are fond of our son-in-law and are thrilled that he is a part of our family. And it was a wonderful experience to be traveling to Africa with not only Laura, but Barbara and Jenna and the son-in-law. And it was, not only we have fun, but we saw firsthand the poverty and the desperation, but we also saw firsthand the joy and the beautiful spirit, human spirit. The greatest challenge for PEPFAR, the AIDS initiative, is funding. And I'm deeply concerned that the developed world, the wealthy world, in the times of a budget crisis will say we can no longer fund these programs or no longer adequately fund these programs. I believe this. I believe that during lean budget times, it's essential that you set priorities And when you fund programs, make sure that they're effective. There's no higher priority than saving lives, and there's no more effective program than the PEPFAR program.